Another blockbuster in the NFL. This time, Tyreek Hill has been sent from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, former 49ers offensive coordinator. How does all this tie in, and what does this move do to the San Francisco 49ers long term? The Niners re-signing some of their own: Jordan Willis, Dontae Johnson, Jeff Wilson, and it looks like Bobby Wagner might stay in the NFC West. All that and more coming up on this edition of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it is every day. We do it all year long in the off season as well, Croc. And you know why we can? Because of stories like this. It's nonstop, man. It is nonstop. The Niners doing some more work in free agency, re-signing some guys. But the big news of the day around the NFL is the Tyreek Hill trade. Kind of came out of nowhere to me, Croc. I don't know if you've heard whispers of this one, but Tyreek Hill on his way to the Miami Dolphins from the Kansas City Chiefs and becomes the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history, 5 draft picks going the other way. Mike McDaniel's trying to build a track team over there. He already brought some folks from the 49ers to Miami, one being Raheem Mostert and his ridiculous speed. Now he brings probably they're 1 and 2, 2 and 1, the two fastest players in the NFL, right? In Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. And they just drafted last year with making use of those picks that they got from the 49ers in the trade down from number 3. They went to 12. They went back up to get Jalen Waddle at pick number 6 overall in the draft last year, who also can flat out fly in the 4.3 range. So, man, instantly the fastest offense in the NFL.
Yeah. Now it's just, can they utilize it? You know, and the big, I think, question with them, I asked this question on social media during last season was, man, they got Jalen Waddle, but he's averaging less than 10 yards per catch. Like, what's up with that? Now, he had over 100 receptions, which is amazing. But, you know, watching him at Alabama, I mean, he was stretching the field. And I asked, like, why weren't they using him in that capacity? And the answer I was getting was, well, the offensive line is so bad that it can't hold up to let plays develop and routes develop to where you're able to throw the ball down the field. They had a couple guys this offseason, Teron Armstead. They added Connor Williams from Dallas Cowboys. And I think they're hoping that those guys will hold up to where now they can push the ball downfield to not only Waddle, but Tyreek Hill as well. So and Tyreek Hill is not just a downfield guy.
Right.
I mean, if you really watch Kansas City and outside, they did a lot of those things. They used him all over. Matter of fact, I'd say most of their big plays to Tyreek Hill, I don't want to say most of them, but like probably half of them, weren't like designed big plays. A lot of times it was Patrick Mahomes. First read, maybe not there. He starts to move around, gets outside the pocket. Tyreek Hill adjusts, and they just let it rip and throw the ball down the field. We'll see if maybe Tua can add some of that to his game.
I wonder if they might be handing the ball off to some of those guys a little bit in a Deebo Samuel sort of role. We know that those guys are different than Deebo Samuel, and you can't find the next Deebo Samuel, but the 49ers had so much success, and so I think they're going to try to be creative, create some space there, move those guys around a little bit, get them open in space, and hopefully, Tua can be that dart thrower over the middle of the field, kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo has been in that offense, and facilitate those guys to run after the catch and make some big plays. I think that is the plan. But I think it's a good point by you, not only to help out the running game, but bringing in Armstead and bringing in Connor Williams and helping out the offensive line for Tua, give him a little bit more time. So maybe they can do a little play action and hit some down the field as well.
Yeah.
Is it interesting to you, Croc, that Kyle Shanahan has never really had a Tyreek Hill type of player? It doesn't seem like he's really chasing that style of player. Yet both of his disciples in the Jets and the Miami Dolphins were the two teams that were in on going and getting Tyreek Hill. Why weren't the 49ers in on it? I think we know why they weren't, because he's going to take up, as much salary as Jimmy Garoppolo is for the 49ers this season if he sticks around. Oh, man, I was hoping to not mention Jimmy Garoppolo on this podcast. Dang it. But yeah, is that interesting that it was the two 49ers disciples, those two style of offenses that are going after Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that, but I would say, he has kind of not going after like Tyreek Hill, right? But I'd say guys that he felt like could come in and stretch the field. He's went after those guys, maybe not so much in the draft, but clearly in free agency with Tavon Austin, right? It didn't work out, but with Travis Benjamin, didn't quite work out with JJ Nelson. So I do believe he looked
Goodwin
for that.
doesn't get any faster than
Marquise
Marquise
Goodwin.
Goodwin. Yeah.
I, I I do believe he looked for that type of guy, but maybe never had the guy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What it does really for the 49ers, though, the tie-in here is obviously Deebo Samuel and the future contract that he's going to get, which by the week is just going up and up and up. And we just saw what Davante Adams got paid after he got traded to the Raiders. Now seeing what Tyreek Hill's getting paid after he got traded to Miami. And Deebo Samuel's seeing dollar signs right now. And if he has another season like he had last year, he's going to be asking for everything that those guys got.
Right. And as he should. And I mean, it's crazy. And maybe because people can anticipate that a large amount of money going to Deebo Samuel, as well as seeing what these guys are getting in. I saw on social media, I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to that and listening to these spaces and see what the fans are talking about. So maybe we could discuss some of those things on here. Trade Deebo Samuel. I saw that kind of floating around. I thought that's ridiculous. Like, you don't draft a guy for him to be as good or better than what you expected, just to be like, oh no, let's trade him for all these draft picks, not knowing who the hell or what the hell that's going to be. But no, you keep Deebo Samuel and you pay him whatever the market says he's worth.
I would say there's one. Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't make any sense at all. Pay him what he's worth. I worry about how he's going to hold up maybe a little bit, which is why I would rather pay Deebo next year because we already know he's going to ask stupid money now. So might as well wait a year, make sure he can prove he can be healthy, especially if he's used in a little bit of that role at running back again too, and then pay him, just to make sure he can do it again because he's been a 1-year wonder so far. He was good his first couple of years, but he didn't have that type of year to be asking for what Davante Adams is asking when he's done it over and over and over again. Tyreek Hill's done it over and over and over again, right? So let's see Deebo do it again, and then we'll see where he gets with his contract maybe next year. And then you could, now it even makes more sense to franchise tag him if you have to, if you're the 49ers, just to help get a deal done because that franchise tag is, going to be crazy anyway, but it'll be, not as long term as what a crazy deal would be when you sign him to, 20 to 25 million, which is what he's going to be asking for. But here's the scenario.
Hold on. Would you consider him being a guy? Because again, you talked about, the different ways they utilize him. You talked about not one hit wonder, but having one exceptional season as opposed to these other guys who have had, 5, 6, 7 seasons that are, elite, status. And that's why they're getting paid so much money. When you think about Deebo Samuel's age and factor that into a contract, and would you actually lean more towards potentially franchise tagging him twice, have him play on whatever it is this year at 26, franchise tag him so at 27 plays on franchise tag, at 28 maybe play on the franchise tag, and then going into 29 you kind of just,
I mean, if he would let that happen, yes, but I have a feeling there'd be no number 19 at training camp when training camp opens, and maybe not when if you tried to get him to play on the franchise tag. So maybe the franchise tag is just a way to not let him leave in free agency. And if he does want to leave in free agency, you get those 2 number 1s in return, right? Or someone's got to pony up with a big trade. And it just keeps him around so you can figure out that contract a little bit later into the offseason or something like that. But I think they'd be able to get a deal done. But they did it with kind of Warner and Kittle, not quite as much because they'd had good years leading up to their best years, but they paid those guys right after their best year. They paid Eric Armstead right after his best year, right? So it's kind of bad business just to pay a guy the most money right after they had their one best year one time.
Right, and we've seen other teams do kind of the opposite. Look at my guy, straight out of Stockton, Tremaine Johnson. The Los Angeles Rams, he had a good year. He had a year where he had like 7 interceptions. And they were like, not quite sure. Let's franchise tag him. So they franchised him. Yep. And then the next year, they franchised him again. Did not want to commit long term. And then they let him hit free agency. And he made a lot of money, from the New York Jets. It didn't work out for the Jets as well as it worked out for Tremaine Johnson. But we have seen a team where it's like, and I'm not saying Deebo's Tremaine, but Tremaine, I think he was looked at as a really good cornerback and kind of fell off a little bit for whatever reasons. But they franchise tagged him twice. He played on it because at that time, those 2 years being franchise tagged in the row is $30 million.
Yeah.
Like, what would it be for Deebo if you were to and again, you want that long-term security, but if you were to franchise tag him twice a year, that tag number, because of Adams' contract and Hill, it's going to be about $25 million each year. So if it's 25 1 year, then
it won't be that high. I believe this year it was 18 or 19.
Well, that was before.
It'll go up, but it's not going to, because it's still an average of the top guys. It's not just who the very, very top is. So it'll still be an average of,
But it has to be an average between the 30, 28, and then probably a couple of 22s.
Wait, 30?
That's what Tyreek Hill's average per year is.
No. I think it was only 23 and a half. And Davante Adams turns out to only be 22, I think.
Huh?
And it was way lower than the initial report. Every contract I've seen has been way off from the initial reports, or at least structurally.
Okay, so yeah. What I saw with Tyreek Hill was like 4 years. It was like 4 years, 130 million or something like that. That was what I saw.
No, unless there's been new reporting since what I saw. I saw it was a 3-year extension after this year, so 4 years total he has left, but this year's contract stays the same for him. So the 3 added years start next year, and it's $375. So it's 25 mil per year, but it's less than 25 this year. So it works out being something like 23 and a half over the next 4 years on that contract.
Okay, yeah. Deebo's franchise
Davante Adams
crazy, man.
Davante Adams is a lot lower. Von Miller is another one that was a lot lower because there's just 2 years there's like $50 million over the course of 2 years at the end of the contract that he's never going to see. And so, there's some funny money and some weird structures and some lying from the agents when these deals get done. So it's not as crazy as it looks as far as what the franchise tag will be and what Deebo will get next year. And these guys have longer track records, so they might get more. And those teams are forced to pay him a lot because they're changing teams too. So we'll see if the Niners can get a deal done with Deebo before he hits free agency next year. And that might even be this summer. I have next an idea about a trade that could happen. And maybe it's Deebo, probably not. But I think there is a trade scenario that does make sense, and it wouldn't be this offseason that something like that would happen. And we got to talk about the players the 49ers have re-signed and brought back. And then maybe Bobby Wagner could be facing the 49ers twice a year, continuing just like it was before. More of the same, Croc. We'll get into all that stuff next. I want to talk a little bit about BetOnline here. And I was kind of surprised to see how originally when the BetOnline odds for who's going to win the Super Bowl next year, when those odds came out, I was surprised the 49ers were a top 5 team when they were going to have a first-year starting quarterback coming back in 2022. I don't know if that's going to be the case now. We'll see what happens with Jimmy G and the 49ers quarterback situation, but they've been passed up by a couple of teams since free agency now. 49ers still, though, 7th in the NFL at 14-1 odds to win the next Super Bowl. The only teams ahead of them are the Rams, the Chargers, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Buffalo Bills at number 1. And you can get in on that action at betonline.net. The college basketball tournament is in full swing now. All the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline is the number 1 source for all your sports betting needs and information, not just wagering, but sports scores and news this season as well. And it's not just football and basketball. Your favorite Vegas casino games are there. You can do live betting during games. You've got NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, boxing, just about everything you would want to wager on. You can find it at BetOnline. So get over to the website or use your mobile device and learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. How about this for a trade idea, Croc? I'm not even saying this is something I would throw out there as a trade, but I can see one scenario where the 49ers have to do something a little bit shocking and surprising, trading away a player, an offensive pass catcher. I don't think it's going to be George Kittle. I don't think it's going to be Deebo Samuel, but it could be Deebo, tag and trade scenario. And the scenario would be Brandon Ayuk in year 3 breaks out just like Deebo Samuel did in year 3. If all of a sudden Ayuk has a crazy season, and let's say that the Niners this offseason, this summer, re-up with Deebo Samuel, what do you do with Ayuk? Because he'll be in the same situation just a year later that Deebo's in right now. And there's been a really good connection, right? Seemingly with the young quarterback Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk. What if Brandon Ayuk goes off this year? The 49ers probably can't pay Ayuk along with Deebo, along with Kittle. So at that point, maybe the 49ers do have to send away one of their receivers. But I think that's a next year problem, a next January, February problem, not a right now problem.
You look at some of the pictures that are floating around on Instagram, and it's clear Ayuk and Trey Lance, they are working hard to develop that rapport. They're training together on their speed, on throwing, receiving, every which way. While Deebo's enjoying himself out in Miami, he's training as well. I see videos of him training, but just not with his quarterback. And how much of a rapport is Trey Lance going to continue to create with Ayuk, and what does that mean statistically for both Ayuk and Deebo? And I don't foresee a big dip in Deebo's numbers, but maybe Ayuk can have a season to where it's like, well, he's younger. He's the younger of the two by probably a few years, and he's pure receiver and all that and the other, and he takes his game to the next level. He's everything Kyle wants, and maybe they do let him go. But the only thing I'd say that makes it hard for me to even fathom that, they have talked about the relationship that Deebo Samuel and Kyle Shanahan have, where Deebo is talking to him every day. They talk about everything, anything you can think of. I guess they talk about those things. So I would say, Kyle would have a really difficult time doing anything to move on from him. Now, Kittle, again, another guy that everyone loves. And I think everyone on the team, he exemplifies everything that Kyle Shanahan wants his team to stand for. So I have a hard time thinking Kittle goes anywhere as well. So, I guess what it comes down to is if any of those guys are going to get traded, it's going to be Ayuk.
I kind of get the same vibe, and I could see a big year from Ayuk next year. He's the odd man out, especially if the 49ers end up drafting another wide receiver this year that shows up and is on his rookie contract at that point, and that looks like he can be a wide receiver too with Deebo and maybe even replace Ayuk. And I think the 49ers should be in the market for that player to not only have, 3 explosive good wide receivers on their roster, but potentially, you got to still develop and have some good players filtering through. So, and with the money that wide receivers are making these days, a lot cheaper to develop your own guy than to go out there on the market and spend not only draft picks, but money too. Like, is that even a smart team building strategy? What the Raiders are doing, what Miami is doing to send first round picks, second round picks, like that's 2 picks in the top 50. It's hard to build the rest of your roster that way. It's not like this is the last piece for Miami, I don't think, to be in just like a Super Bowl team. They're not trying to go. It's not like the 49ers and the Cowboys from back in the day where they're trying to, just go right over the top of somebody. Like, they've got a ways to go, right? And with the Raiders, I mean, they're still 4th in the division, right? On paper, after going and getting someone like Davante Adams. So you're spending crazy money and draft picks for the wide receiver position. And every year there's a dozen new good wide receivers coming into the league. I don't know if it's necessarily smart strategy or not, but I understand why the teams would do it. But I don't know. Are you down with those moves from the acquiring teams? Because I kind of feel like the Chiefs won this deal.
I think I don't know if there was a clear-cut winner in this. The Chiefs, I think you would think win because at least they can draft and develop a receiver. They have 2 cracks at it now in the first round, and you get 2 fifth-year options on whoever you choose at that spot. You also have a terrific pass catcher in Travis Kelce. We'll see what happens with Juju Smith and Mecole Hardman. But Kelce, Tyreek Hill scared everyone, and he changed the way that you had to play defense. And they lose that element to their offense. Just that scary stretch the field. You got to, shade your defense this way, keep a safety over top. Now you can probably give a little bit more attention to Travis Kelce and those things. And then from the Raiders' perspective, I think what helps the Raiders, Davante Adams, Carr, they've played together. I think this is their chance to just kind of go all in and be able to compete in the AFC West. But And I agree. It's not the ideal way to build things, but I kind of like it more for the Raiders than I do the Chiefs. Than the Chiefs trading away Tyreek Hill.
Not ideal. Not ideal at all. But those offenses will be a lot more fun to watch with those players. That is for absolutely sure. What do you think about Bobby Wagner potentially going to the Los Angeles Rams? I don't think it's a done deal yet, but from what I've seen, he's visiting the Rams. And I haven't heard about Bobby Wagner visiting anybody else. And there was some heat about Wagner saying he wanted to play with Warner or wanted to stay in the NFC West. And I believe he's from Southern California, Los Angeles area. So, I mean, that would just go right along with what the Rams have been doing, right? Big time
Yeah.
names, stars and scrubs roster.
I know. I see a lot of my guys are like, how are they doing this? 49ers ain't signing anyone, but the Rams, they've been able to sign anyone they think about. But I'm like, nah, they've lost guys. They lost Von Miller, who they traded for. Looks like they might lose Odell Beckham. We'll see if he ends up returning. They had to trade away Robert Woods. They've lost guys as well. So
Starting corner.
starting corner. Yeah, I don't know. Bobby Wagner. Again, I don't know who is Bobby Wagner right now at this stage in his career. And I'm not saying he's washed up. I legit don't know. From what I see or hear about where he's at right now, he's not what he used to be. Now, does him not being what he used to be still a step above Aziz Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw? Probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have any real thoughts
It was
on
just,
it.
yeah, Bobby Wagner's the wrong position for the 49ers to be going after. It'd be more frustrating if it was, say, an edge rusher or, something like that. But Bobby Wagner, I think you had to let that happen. But I see the frustration from 49ers fans because they really want the 49ers to do something. You don't trade Jimmy, and the Rams are over here still doing their thing. And there's so many big moves happening around the NFL, and the 49ers really aren't getting involved in any of that right now. We'll see if they do. But they did have some signings, Croc, that we've got to talk about next. And I want to see, Croc, show me your shocked face that Dontae Johnson is coming back. The 49ers have re-signed cornerback, safety, slot, nickel guy, do it all, special teamer, Dontae Johnson.
Not shocked at all.
I love it, man. I like Dontae Johnson more now than I did a year ago, and I liked him a year ago more than I liked him 3 years before that, right? Like, I'm glad. I want Dontae Johnson to stick around now, and I like the way, I like his attitude. I like the role that he's been able to start playing for the 49ers, where they haven't really had to lean on him, but he can give you some snaps at outside corner. He can play some safety. He knows the defense. He's been around. He's a veteran. He can play nickel, play special teams. So you need a guy like that. You need depth, and that's exactly what Dontae Johnson is.
I've been fighting this battle with a lot of fans about him, and it's never ideal when your sixth corner has to play. But I've always told, like, you can do a lot worse than Dontae Johnson. He can fill in at multiple spots, slot, outside, safety, just as you were just saying. I mean, that's big time value, as well as be someone who plays special teams. So a lot of people have been really frustrated that he's able to stick around on the 49ers, but I love it. I think he's the perfect sixth corner. Perfect.
Yep.
Hell, he had to come in the playoff game. He was part of the reason why the 49ers were able to beat the – matter of fact, he started that game against the Packers, right?
Yes.
He started. Amber Thomas was hurt. He started that game. I mean, to be able to have your guy – again, he started off on the roster as this sixth corner on your depth chart and had to start a playoff game, and you did not lose. Like, to me, that's value there.
Absolutely.
He did not get picked on. Now, early on, first drive, it looked like, it might get a little ugly. But after that, it was solid.
Yep.
It was good.
Yep.
So he raced that first drive, and you're like, hey, he had a hell of a game. Matter of fact, when he got hurt and Josh Norman had to come in, people were scared. They were shaking, like, oh no, Josh Norman. I mean, Dontae Johnson, he's out. Hopefully, he comes back. And obviously, he came back like the next drive. But that just shows, man, really good value. I like it. 9-year vet. And a lot of people, they get on Trent Baalke for missed picks or mishandling of a roster. And he did have a mass exodus heading into the 2015 season. But shout out to him for having a guy like Dontae Johnson around who's been in the league 9 years now, and it was a day 3 pick.
Yeah, and the mental toughness, the stick to itiveness for him, who's been off the roster, been on the street, come back multiple times, and actually this is the earliest he's been re-signed in a while, right? Doesn't he always get signed like in the summer? So he got a second wave free agency signing in March. So good for Dontae Johnson.
Yep.
Jordan Willis re-signed, defensive end. I mean, it was worth it just for the game he had against the Green Bay Packers and the blocked punt. But does this
You want
mean
Arden Key?
Yeah, does this mean Arden Key's not coming back? It might. But I mean, Jordan Willis is going to get less money. So that's one thing. But I think, okay. But I think it might mean that Arden Key's going to walk. And man, I think you have to start looking at pick 61 with a situational pass rusher at least, because Abel Com, if we see the guy we saw at the beginning of the year next year, or if we see the guy next year that looked like the beginning of the year guy last year, that's not good. But if we see the guy all year that looked like the end of the year guy, then that'll be much better. But I think the 49ers have to prepare, because he's going to be a free agent anyway, to develop another guy. And Jordan Willis is a nice role player, but he's not that dude, right? He's just a rotational defensive end, play a little special teams for you. But I think they need to find that guy, and they need to be cheap with the money Bosa is going to be making on the opposite
Peacock,
side.
They have that guy.
Who?
D Ford. He's still on the roster.
He's just a placeholder. He's just dead. He's like walking dead money. Is what he is.
What kind of placeholder is this? I haven't seen anything like this. Or have you seen anything like this where it's a guy is just you can't? He's just there.
He's not there. His name is there, and there's a check that goes out to him, but he's
making
a
lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And again, see, that was one of those where you got to pay draft picks and you got to sign a guy big money. Yeah. Who's later in his career. Those kind of deals don't work out great a lot of the time. That's not the way you want to have to do business, and you force yourself into a corner if you have that huge need like the Raiders and maybe Dolphins did. I guess the Dolphins didn't have that need. Kind of too similar. I don't want to talk so much about the Dolphins roster, stealing all these Niners, but I'm kind of interested in how that ends up looking for Mike McDaniel. The most similar guy to Waddle was Tyreek Hill in the league. So is that too, because you want to have that basketball team out there, right? You need your small forward, your power forward, your point guard. They just got 2 point guards now.
No, they got their small forward too. His name is Trent Sherfield.
Oh, they got Sherfield. That's right. And they got Davante Parker, So
they did sign Cedric Wilson. They signed Cedric Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys.
You're right. They got a ton of wide receivers over there. What are they doing? Did they really have to do that and pay that much for Hill? That's kind of weird.
I didn't think so.
Kind of weird. Jeff Wilson has been re-signed as well by the San Francisco 49ers. So basically, he's your short yardage sort of a almost hybrid fullback at times. I kind of liked the way they used him, though, in that way where they would have Jeff Wilson on the field, and then all of a sudden he'd be the running back, but then he'd become the fullback, and then Deebo Samuel would motion to the backfield, and he'd become the running back. So now you got, a 21 personnel situation instead of 11 personnel situation. And Jeff Wilson's not afraid to hit people, so I like him in that role.
Yeah.
He's a good guy to have around. He's kind of like the Dontae Johnson of running backs now, where he's kind of, at the bottom of the pecking order, but you're not worried about it when he comes into the game.
Yeah, I like him. I like the way he runs hard. He's physical. I like his mentality. I like watching the videos of him pre-game where he's just like super focused and is like he's just like looks like he's just gone. I like Jeff Wilson. There's some runs by him that just stick out of my memory. His rookie year, there was one against the Seahawks where he just bucked the dude, just boom. And there's another one against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, he just ran so hard. And I know obviously you got the game winner against Arizona and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, I like Jeff Wilson. I like him. A guy who coming out wasn't very big. He was listed at like 195 pounds. He plays much bigger than that. That's for sure.
He's still not that big, but he plays much more physical and bigger than his size. And he's still undefeated, I think, on that Texas route or option route or circle route, whatever you want to call it. He's really good on that one coming out of the backfield. Yeah. But I think the 49ers need to look at speed. I think they need to add a guy. They lost Raheem Mostert, the only really fast running back on the roster now. JaMychal Hasty's kind of shifty, but he's not, game-breaking type of a speed guy. So Elijah Mitchell's the number 1 back, and he's got the most top speed. I think the 49ers could be looking maybe day 3 for a guy with some speed. So I think that's going to be one of our scouting series here before the draft coming up real soon. Real quick, Croc, can you tell the story about, and we've been teasing it for a few episodes and haven't gotten to it, but Damari Mathis, he is a cornerback that at his pro day just jumped out of the building, 43.5 inches at Damari Mathis's pro day. He ran really well at the combine too at 5'11", 196 pounds. Could be someone the 49ers are interested in out of Pittsburgh. He ran a 4.39 at the combine, then jumped 43.5 inches at his pro day. So an explosive athlete, but was it his mom that didn't like something you said about him as a prospect, Croc?
No, the crazy thing is I didn't even say anything about him. Matter of fact, I actually responded. I was like, look, I said something good about your son, but I guess this was kind of a cool moment, almost like Eric Crocker, you've kind of arrived here in the minds of some people as a cornerback talent evaluator, because his mom randomly, I don't follow her, I don't think she was following me, I don't know, but she tweets out, "My son has been underrated his entire career. He remains humble. I just did not anticipate the politics. HTP, and I think that's held to Pittsburgh. HTP, held to Pittsburgh, I think.
Makes sense.
ACC champs, and go to the NFL Combine and run a 4.39 in a 40-yard dash and still no hype. Put some respect on Damari Mathis' name, NFL Combine. Jim Nagy, Eric Crocker." So, it was
that's great. She called you out of nowhere. She's just like repping for her son. I love that. So did you go back at her advice and go watch a little bit more of Damari Mathis? Is he a potential future 49er, Croc?
I said that I would. I have not yet. But I said, you know what, ma'am? That's on me. I'll take that. I said, I'll get on him soon. I did post a little something about him while I was at the Senior Bowl, but after watching his film, but after watching his film, I'll go more in depth. All right. So what I was talking about was I had posted this tweet while at the Senior Bowl week. I said, wasn't one of my focus guys, because I had like this group of players where I was like, oh, I'm gonna focus on these, because if you just go in there and you're just watching everything, you'll end up watching nothing. So I had like a few players that I wanted to specifically watch, but I noticed this guy and I said, wasn't one of my focus guys. This is from February 1st while I was at the Senior Bowl. Wasn't one of my focus guys, but Damari Mathis from Pittsburgh showed some good stuff. Extremely competitive in one-on-ones, good eyes, good reading receivers down, showed good feet, hips, and I definitely had some grammatical errors here. I said, but he worked outside and inside the slot. And I put hashtag Senior Bowl, hashtag at Senior Bowl. So a lot of people saw that. A lot of people had great things to say in response to that, like my original tweet. But the mom, she just came at me, man. You're not talking about my son enough.
All right. Well, we got to talking about him today on the show, and just looking at the profile, hearing you talk about him, inside, outside versatility, 5'11", 196, 4.39. He's got some pretty decently long arms, just a hair under 32-inch arm length. I mean, that fits the profile. Emmanuel Mosley, Ambry Thomas, right? I could totally see the 49ers taking a look.
Coach Marion,
Damari Mathis, absolutely.
Coach Brendan Marion, who's now he's a receiver coach at Texas and like offensive, and he's like offensive something and receiver coach at Texas now. He was a receiver coach at Pittsburgh last year. Quick little comment on there. He says he loves to compete and work. So that was good. And a lot of his teammates came, and there are a bunch of his teammates responding to my initial tweet, talking about, how much of a gamer he is. So Damari Mathis, somebody I definitely need to do more breakdown. Then I saw a couple of videos of him kind of floating around the other day of people showing some of his abilities. So might be somebody that's a little slept on and under the radar, as mom said.
Absolutely. Competitive. I like that. A whole lot, with a lot of athleticism to boot. All right. We'll plug him in there. He's on the list now. He's on the list of cornerbacks to watch for those San Francisco 49ers. Shout out to Mathis and his mom. Shout out to Croc, the cornerback expert that we get to talk ball with every day here on Locked On 49ers. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out Croc doing the Locked On NFL Draft podcast every day here on the network. I'm doing Peacock and Williamson, talking about the entire NFL every single day. Croc and I back tomorrow. Going live? We going live, Croc?
I'll be in California. We'll see if I have a good internet connection.
Dude, you're putting up some serious airline miles, man.
My son, man, he's running track out there, so I can't miss my baby run.
All right.
High school freshman year. So
I don't think it'll be live, but we will be back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.